The Pentagon is considering assigning the newest military branch, Space Force, to take the lead in a ramped-up effort to investigate sightings of UFOs after a June report found all but one of 144 UFO incidents could not be explained. The Senate's version of the fiscal 2022 Intelligence Act includes several provisions on UFOs, including long-term plans for tackling the subject and a recommendation for additional funding. This is according to a congressional staffer that told Politico of a classified version of the bill.
But the Space Force isn't so keen on the idea of investigating UFOs, given the media ridicule the branch has received since its inception. Joining us now to discuss is Democratic strategist Jennifer Holdsworth Karp and Senior Director of Policy at the Conservative Partnership Institute, Rachel Brevard. Jennifer, let me pose this to you. Should this task fall under the Space Force, the newly created branch of the armed forces, to look into UAPs and UFOs, or is it better kept under the Air Force and Navy as it's previously been?
You know, I think it would make logical sense for it to go to the Space Force. I know that the organization received, as you mentioned, a ton of ridicule when it was introduced. I know a lot of members of my party scoffed at the idea, especially because it was introduced and suggested by President Trump. But I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the Space Force is actually designed to do. And I think if we put out more information about that, folks would be less willing to ridicule what the actual mission is. While the UAP and the UFO conversation is an important one, I personally have been having a very hard time wrapping my brain around the information that is coming out regarding this conversation. Of course, my first instinct is to dismiss it and roll my eyes and call it ridiculous and say, we've got a lot of problems here on Earth we need to be focused on. But look, the information flow on this is serious and it's not stopping. In terms of the Space Force itself, there are a number of charges that organization has that America needs to learn more about in terms of protecting Earth from threats. Now, I'm not talking about an invading alien force here, right? I'm talking about asteroids and other things that can come to Earth and be a life-ending event, right? This is something that the Space Force is very specifically focused on. Adding the UAP conversation to their mission, I think, makes a lot of sense if we are talking about Earth protection. Now, I know I'm going to get tons of ridicule from the Twitterati about this conversation, but I sort of outed myself as a space nerd a number of weeks ago on this program, so I don't mind leaning into it. There is so much that we don't know about the universe that Earth exists in that we need to learn to better humanity here on Earth. And that's a conversation that I won't back down from. So I support the mission. I support this particular charge being assigned to the mission. And I think that there is a lot more investigation that needs to happen and needs to be presented to the American people.